Welcome to Seeking Numina, the Sacred Places podcast. I'm your host, Elyse Welles, and today I'm joined by Gwendolyn Reece, author of The Waters of Mnemosyne. Gwendolyn Reece is a high priestess in the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, leading Theophania Temple in Washington, D.C. She is devoted to the Hellenic deities, especially Apollo and Athena. She serves as president of the Sacred Space Conference and is a national teacher for the Theosophical Society in America. And you can learn more at gwendolynreece.net. And also in the description, you'll see all these links there. And this is Gwendolyn's awesome book on working with Mnemosyne and beyond into understanding how ancient Greek religion can be practiced by modern pagans.
Welcome to Seeking Numina. I'm your host, Elyse Welles, and I invite you to connect with the sacred wild within and around you through Numina, or sacred sites, around the world, and the wisdom they hold. Together, let's remember the old ways, build relationships with land spirits, and dare to reach out to the fairies. The sacred wild is inviting you to dance in the moonlight. Will you answer their call?
So thank you for being here, and I'm really excited to talk with you about Greece, the sacred places there that you've experienced, and something I liked about this book a lot is you had journeys to those sacred places. So the people who can't travel there or won't get there anytime soon, maybe they can still get to experience what it is to be on the land. And I love that you appreciate that about Greece, is the land itself is speaking these truths.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be speaking.
So tell me, I guess start at the beginning, but when did Greece call you? How did you know, I need to get there? I need to work with these gods.
So I've always said, and it's probably, cliche, but I make no sense to myself without reincarnation, because I grew up in Ohio with very loving parents who have none of this at all. And this was something that I think before grade school, even the first moment I ever heard, I was like, there. And of course, as is not uncommon with many young girls, the first one to come to me and be present with me was Artemis. I mean, she's the protector of young girls. So I don't remember a time in which I didn't have this. My game that I would play is I would go hide in these lilac bushes when I was itty and imagine that I was in Greece with Artemis and her nymphs and talk to her. And so, I mean, I've just always been like this. And like I said, it does not come out of my family. I obviously, I look more Viking oriented than anything else. So if it's in my blood, it is hidden in my blood. But I just believe that I've always had these memories and these connections, and I brought them back. And and I've always said, me and many others, if they are in our hearts, then they will always have a doorway into this world, because they are coming through our hearts. They're there. I just have always believed that. And so my dad is a scholar. And so, I had burned through every bit on Greek mythology in the public library and the school library back when I was in grade school, and he started bringing me books home from, his college library, and I was burning through those, and I was just completely and totally obsessed. And of course, my parents, they're like, oh, our little scholar. And what they did not understand is that I was not approaching it. I mean, I do have a scholarly background, and I pursued a scholarly background in this because it is my true passion through my entire life. But what they didn't understand is that I was also going out into the backyard and being like, hey, and doing that. So yeah, so I always wanted to get to Greece. That has just been a calling. And I'll tell you something that's kind of funny, that I find funny at any rate. I had the most horrible sense of direction. I would get lost constantly until the moment I stepped into Greece. And I swear to God, it's I think I was in many places, but especially in Athens. And I mean, I believe I have memories from there back when, when it was Bronze Age kind of thing. And like the second I was there, it was like my compass got set. It was like my feet knew their way around. I landed. I was like, the first thing I have to do is go to the Keramikos and greet the ancestors. That's the first thing I have to do. And so I got off the plane. I ran there and they said, oh, the Keramikos is closed. I was like, no. And so, and they're like, well, you could go over to the Agora. And my feet just took me straight to the Keramikos. And it was, in fact, open. And the first thing I did was run in and ran to the temple of the Trittapatrion and like fell on my knees. And I was like, thank you. And so my feet knew their way around Athens. And then when I got back, I don't have a terrible sense of direction anymore. It's like north on my compass got in some way that it just wasn't until I got there, which is a weird personal story, but
relatable.
Whatever that is.
So it's really interesting doing my retreats and bringing people to Greece. So many people will share stories and this one actually is one that I experienced personally as well. I have a terrible sense of direction. And unfortunately, it did not get fixed in Greece, but it's still a terrible sense of direction. But because I know that about myself, when the land guides me, I mean, look, the work I've been doing the past 3 years has really been about uncovering the lost oracle places, the places on the land that we can kind of sort of piece together from Pausanias, and then we can go and say, okay, well, that river moved over there 2 kilometers. Like we can actually, so I've been able to find several of them. And that should not be possible for someone who needs a GPS to get to the Aldi that is 8 minutes from my house on one road. Like it's crazy how the land will speak, and it's a great proof, you know, like I really see it as such validity of like, no, okay, I'm meant to find these things because, and it's the same in Athens. Athens is not a simple city to get around. And if you use your logic too much, if you try to use the GPS, or you will not be able to tell which turn is which. And because this is talk about a pre-grid city.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so exactly. You just kind of know around. Have you found Trophonius? Because I found Trophonius. I know where it is. If you don't know where it is, yes, cool. Because you know the other thing that's interesting is, of course, you can find things through Byron, because Byron ran around and found stuff, and some of that, like through his letters, you can also find some things. So that's awesome.
That's a really good point. I found Byron so a weird thing about me, you might not know this, but my dad took a job in the Middle East when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
So I lived in Bahrain for almost 4 years. And so I did the British school system. So I did GCSEs, and then I did a year of IB. And the GCSE is like, you know, you learn all about Lord Byron. And that was where I didn't really understand like the British love of Greece and how it evolved. And so that became a little rabbit hole of my own research on Philhellenism, like the idea of like almost like anime boys today, but rich white guys in England loving Greece, and it literally allowed the West to embrace Greece as part of its story. So it's very important and beautiful. So thanks for mentioning Byron, because I always, when I bring people to Sunyo, I always am like so excited to tell them about the Byron connection, and there it is. That's his signature, and people are, especially Americans, like they don't know Byron, and it's fair. I get it. There's a lot of poets to know. We've got Whitman, we've got Frost, you know, but. Yeah, I love Byron. I love my romantics. There's a great, this is such an ADHD side note, but if listeners don't know about Ronald Hutton, I talk about him a lot, but just remember Ronald Hutton, everybody. He's our historian in a lot of ways as a pagan, as pagans on the path. And he does a great talk on Pan every so often. If you ever can catch it, he does it through different universities online. He does it through the Last Tuesday Society, but he was the one who really alerted me to like, this is bigger than just poetry. Like Pan entered the consciousness, and so many gods enter the consciousness through creatives. And
no, I do. I always pay attention to like, when are they reaching out, you know, and you can kind of tell like, you know, to me, even though there's stuff in there that's kind of silly, you know, Rick Riordan's stuff, like the Trials of Apollon, like when you get to the very end of that, I was just weeping. I was like, because he was reaching out. I really think that. And of course, you know, he's the one that I feel closest to. But it's interesting to see how they reach out and touch people still. And often, as you said, through creatives.
I have a question. You work with Athena.
I work with both,
that I didn't think of. You saying that made me think of it. I have had 4 or 5 people reach out to me in the past month saying Athena's been coming to them. These are totally disparate conversations. These aren't, you know, it's just Instagram, email. And they're kind of saying the same thing. They're all mentioning that she's coming in dreams, and dreams have been amped up, I would say, in the past week as well. Like I've been having conversations in the courses I teach, but also my coven, but also again disparate folks online about dream work since the I think it was last week now, about 6 days ago, the eclipse we had.
The eclipse, yeah.
And then Athena, again, I had another message yesterday from somebody.
Yeah.
Do you have some thoughts on why? I have some thoughts, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, so part of the reason that both Athena and Apollon came to me with specific work, because this is one of the other things. It's like I have the connection, and then there's also the things that they want to see done in the world. And as I said, this was not the kind of thing. It was like, oh, this is also happy. It's like, no, when they reach out this way, it's an emergency. I mean, that's the way I think of it. And back in 2015 is when I got the call, and they're like, your democracy is in serious danger. You are in very serious danger. And so, we have been trying to do things about that. And I think that they care. I mean, this, and the way in which I understand it, which, everything that you get is also running through your own psychology. So I also always wanted, it's like that whole thing of like, also you use your critical thinking. Don't take what anyone says, including me, without running it through your critical thinking. That's part of it. But the way in which I understand it is like, it is not necessarily that democracy inherently leads to better government. We know that it doesn't. That there's nothing that ensures that democracy is going to lead to better government. But it does require people to be fully adults, to be spiritually and mentally adults, and to take responsibility for themselves, for their world, and for their society. And that, to me, is what they want, I think. That's a huge part of it. And I think that there's going to be some moments coming up that will also be potential turning points. Now, I have been asking about what specifically can we do, and they're like, there are some things that have to play themselves out. There are some things that have to play themselves out. There are now some things that have to play themselves out. But at the same time, I've also been getting the working locally for sure. So I suspect it has something to do with that. I think we are headed into another moment that could be a pivot moment. That's for me, but that's going to be the way in which it's going to run through me. Does that align with some of what you are also hearing?
Yeah, it is a lot of
Okay.
let it play out.
Yeah.
The things that needed to shift for this to play out favorably have shifted. That's the
Yeah.
other. Oh, I got goosebumps again on that one.
Yeah.
I
Good.
get that constantly, that they're like, no, this must happen, and it
Yep.
will happen as it's meant to. But again, yes, it's the community and the local, like moving out into, and it's an interesting. So in 2021, I got a really clear vision of almost a constellation of temples. Kind of like, like in the beginning of a news segment or whatever, they do that thing where they pan across the world and the little lights zip
Yep.
up, and
Yeah.
it was sort of like that, but I knew these were sacred places of refuge for those
Yeah.
of us on the path of, we'll use the word
Yeah.
pagan in a really broad sense, but earth-based spirituality, connecting to gods, connecting to land. And and the other thing that was important that the vision showed me is that these were connected autonomous centers, but with trust
Yeah.
between the elders,
Yeah.
the priestesses, like, who are running it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a long time ago now, in a way. Not really, but 5 years, 6 years.
It
And
sure feels like a long time, doesn't it?
it really does. The years since COVID each feel like their own epochs. It is
Yeah.
wild. But those are developing, again, in the way that they must on their own. People are doing it, like I've started, actually, we just got our articles accepted on Friday for the 501c that we're starting in Maryland, the
Great.
Sacred Earth Temple. And so I think Athena particularly, because no one's messaging me with Aries is here,
Yeah.
It's
No.
all Athena is coming. She has these ideas. She's preparing me. It feels like I'm getting prepared for something. I
Yeah.
think it's because strategy is what's prudent. I mean, it always kind of is, but I think more so lately, we need to be very cognizant of who we're associating with. Basically, authenticity and integrity are at the core of this message of strategy, is get right
Yeah.
within, know
Yeah.
thyself done, know thyself,
Yep.
and then know that you're going to need to be of service. Because you're so right, the gods never call us to just be like, I would like a can of Sprite on the altar. Like
Yeah,
they're coming through because we are being invited to be in service to something higher than
exactly.
ourselves. Join me this Halloween at my festival, Samhain Fest, October 31st and November 1st in Havre de Grace, Maryland. Hear from keynote speaker Laura Tempest-Zakharov, shop handcrafted treasures, connect with your ancestors in a powerful Samhain ritual led by Mike Coven, and enjoy witchy covers from queer cryptid rock band Field of Embers on Saturday night. Explore honoring queer ancestors with Enfys J. Book. Decolonize death with Reverend Ron Padron. Learn about ancestral tattooing with Jake Morningstar. Learn about poison path magic with Datura with Kobe Michael. And honor the dead with Judy Ann Knock. I will be speaking on working with Artemis and Hecate as guides of life and death. And all of us will be available for book signings. Get your tickets at samhainfest.com.
Exactly. And that's always what I say in terms of the way in which I approach the gods. It's like, look for, I mean, you can have, and it's not uncommon to have the one that is close to your heart, or, a couple that are close to your heart that you have that kind of thing with. But it's like, what is it that they want to see, and where you align with that, that is the way to approach. So, I do think that there are big things that are kind of moving along. And there was an opportunity. So much of the pain that we're currently going through was absolutely bloody optional. But collectively we chose that, and that's where we are. And so now there is a whole thing where, with and I do a lot of kind of theological work as well as practical work with this notion, and trying to, because I think it's very helpful, even if people don't ascribe to this, it's helpful to have the model of miasma. It's like, because miasma is like, there are bad things that have happened, but pollution is not individual. It doesn't stay contained. It's like if one person does something, the pollution, just like pollution in the air, it impacts everything. And the first thing you have to do is recognize that that's happening, and then cleanse, and then heal. And I think, that kind of notion of that, it's like, I believe we are in really serious collective miasma right now, and trying to take that really seriously and recognize that, that is part of what we were trying to do, and bringing that lens forward. I think that is different than the notion that so many people carry of sin,
Oh my
which
God.
is very individual, right? Um, and I think what we're dealing with is like, it's not necessarily that it is your fault, but you are now embedded in a circumstance that needs to be addressed. And I think that is part of, we as magical workers, we have the ability to have impact on those levels because we understand it. And, we are working, when we do our work, it affects more than just us also. So that's part of the other piece that I think is part of this. And like I said, Athena and Apollon, who are the two I work with, they care very deeply about that. They care about democracy. They care about our well-being. They're also gods of human civilization. They care more, like Poseidon can care about human civilization, but he mostly cares about the sea. So it's kind of, I mean, I find him to be one of the best allies on environmental things out there in terms of what he
Oh yeah.
cares about. But that's not necessarily like the way in which human societies work is not his main emphasis. It is for Athena, and it is very strongly also for Apollon. And so it does not surprise me that those two in particular, and of course Zeus, but those two have been really reaching out in my experience to a lot of people. I'm getting a lot on the healer aspect, but also on the lawgiver aspect from Apollon, and then a whole lot on Athena. And, those two are very good to work together also, as they did
Yeah.
in, say, the Oresteia, in terms of moving us into rule of law. I mean, they both care about that.
Yeah, and that is such the difference. I talk a lot about, talking about connecting the land. I talk a lot about land spirits, even the
Hmm.
fae, nymphs, or as I would think of them, and the
Yeah.
elementals. Deities are distinct in their relationship to humans from all
Hmm.
other spirits. And I think that's
Yeah.
something really important to know about when deities come through for us. Even if it's not to work with them in long terms, they come through because they care about the human experience. Like I always joke, like
Yes.
a land spirit is not going to weigh in on your 401k plan or which divorce lawyer to pick, but the deities that you work with will, they will help you
Hmm.
in the mundane world workings that are required to allow you to do the work that you're here to do.
Yeah. And there's another thing that I think is kind of interesting too, that we can get something out of the mythology, and the way in which I understand it, which again, run this through your own intuition and critical thinking. But I understand like the mythology is never going to be out of alignment with them. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be literal, but there's something there that it is referencing and making apparent to us in an important way. Just like, I don't believe that the names of the gods are their true names. I believe that those are use names. That may not be what they call themselves. It doesn't matter. But with both Athena and Apollo, both of them have instances in which in the mythology they have deep sorrow and regret. And that reveals something about their capacity to understand pieces of us and working with us in this kind of like allowing us to learn and grow. And they present that as a model, I think, Athena with Pallas, Apollon with a couple of them actually, but they both have that. And then the other thing in both of them is that they very, very clearly understand us deeply. In terms of, I've always said, like, when you're first trying to work with a deity, and if you don't know what you're doing, a healing deity understands us very well, of whatever pantheon that is. But the other ones that I have found, and I don't know if you are finding this or not, but I am finding a lot coming through and trying to rebirth the mysteries is going to be important, like really the actual Hellenic mysteries. And when I have taken people on the tours into the sacred spaces of Greece, Elyse is just huge. That's often where people just suddenly find themselves. And for those who have been there, like it's not as well preserved as some of the other sites, but that's the one where they walk in and they're suddenly like, oh, and having these really big experiences pretty much to the person. So I do just want to mention that there's also something happening, interestingly, in my experience with Hades, Demeter, and Persephone in particular, and Dionysus for that matter.
That's interesting. I also feel, and again, at Eleusis, Hecate is coming through.
Yeah.
She's such a great example because if we read our source material, which I always remind listeners, like our academic source materials, like our written record is much newer, like it kind of starts in a much newer space than our archaeology does. So we're almost talking about two places of source, just for those listening to know that, like, when we talk about a written myth versus we found these carvings, it's we know more in the myth, but we also don't necessarily because we don't know the intention of how it was written. And anyway, I always like to just make sure people remember that when they're with their lenses that they're applying. But I feel like Hecate, traditionally in our sources, she is more maidenly, or matronly, but today we see her as this crone. And I don't think any of it's incorrect. I think it's more that these gods are dynamic and they're shifting to relate to the people where they're at. I will say when I meet Hecate on the astral or in trance or in my inner landscape, she is not, or at the sacred sites, she is not crone-like. She's ageless. She's a mature woman though, but she's ageless. Like she has this maidenly youth and vigor, but it is with depth and wisdom in her eyes that is just ageless, just timeless. But all that to say, I think she's also coming through to probably help revive these mysteries. I think the big one, we have no rites of passage in our modern world. Not really. We have these graduation ceremonies, but we're always kind of just waiting for them to be over so we can get to the restaurant. Like it's not really what we should be doing. We don't have menstrual rights by and large. We're working on it, I think, those of us who build community. But I think the mysteries, a way back to the mysteries, that is really important to say. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, and in particular, and this is, again, you can take this with my whatever the heck memory kind of thing. It's coming through me. I think that there is something there about, in the Orphic Mysteries, I think is pretty explicit, where this kind of ability to maintain a certain level of continuity of consciousness across death and rebirth. And, and I think that that's there. And I think, I mean, I suspect that's probably why I'm walking around with some of this. That's my suspicion. If we could do that, then that gets rid of one of the major problems with being mortal, right? Because the biggest problem with being mortal is that we die, we forget everything, Lethe, and then you just got to come back and you start over and over. It's like Groundhog Day, over and over and over again. as opposed to being able to come in, and you don't necessarily want to remember everything, just like we don't now. Like, it is completely irrelevant what I had for breakfast 2 weeks ago. That is just, dump that buffer, right? But the ability to maintain some level of continuity of consciousness across death and rebirth for the really important things, so that you
Yeah.
have this process of recapitulation, opening back up, and then you're not starting over every single time, which is a huge burden for growth, because what we know, what those of us who think this way believe is that, there's this continuity of personality, which doesn't mean you're the same any more than it does from the time when you're a teenager to when you are an adult in a single lifetime. But there is a continuity that's there as you are growing, and continuity of relationships, which I would say also include our relationships, the divine ones. But I think that there is something there, because so much of the problem that I believe that they were trying to address does have to do with the really big burdens of mortality, is that we forget and then you start over. So I think that is something that has the possibility of being redone, and I would like to see that. And I think some of us are being given calls to work on it. But anyway,
And
that's my thought.
yeah, and it's the gnosis. Like, we use that
Yeah.
word in English in a lot of big ways, but really it's just in the Greek, it's knowledge. It's the deep knowing.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
not like, I know the coffee's hot, I'll drink it slowly. It's gnosis, like the deep knowing. And I think you and I both share that, where we
Hmm.
knew the gods were real from day one.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
never really, and I was super blessed growing up near the temple of Artemis Vavrona, Brauron. Like, I
I
know.
love that one.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And as a child, it's like literally where child
Oh.
like rites took place. And so I never had to learn the gods were real. Like, of course she's real. That's her temple, man. Like, like
Yeah.
there was never any sort of like disconnect there for me. And so I started my work again, just always. It never didn't exist. And then I did my formal witchcraft
Hmm.
training and all these other things as well. I did my master's in syncretic spirituality, all these
Hmm.
things. But it also never didn't exist for me. And so I came to my knowings very young, very, I will say, easily, like, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I've rarely actually had um any instigation of doubt or anything. um
Hmm.
and so I started teaching fairly young as well. I started teaching when I was
Hmm.
26, and that was so insecure for me. And my guides had to sort of like slap me around a
Yeah.
little bit and be like, do you understand, if you wait until you're in your 50s, 60s, like, to be like, you're wasting this life. Like, you need to get out
Hmm.
of your own way and know that you're being given this now, because you've been given this who knows how many times over how
Right.
many millennia. So you have
Yeah.
to move it forward each life. So
Yeah.
it's imperative. It's the gods come to us with imperatives like that.
Hmm. Yeah. I love Brauron. I'm so glad you talk about that one, because, the last tour that I took was the first we were able to go there as a group. And you've probably said this many a time on your show, but for anyone who is just hearing this now, Brauron has more to do with girls' lives and women's lives than any of the other sites. And so I think it is absolutely imperative to go be there if you can. And Artemis is so present. She's just still so present. The last time when we were there were a whole bunch of pregnant women who were there, Greek pregnant women who were there seeking her blessing. And it was just incredible. And I just really encourage anyone to go to that site. It's close to Athens. You can totally get there on a day trip, and
Yeah.
well worth it. That is, I love so many of the really, there's a reason that the Acropolis and Delphi and Olympia are big sites that, if you're going to go, you do need to go to them. They're powerful. But often the ones that don't have as many other tourists around, it's like, because there's not as much noise, it's easier for people to really tap in. But yeah, that's an incredible one. I love that.
And the spring has been bursting forth. That's something else
Yeah.
I've loved about the land.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
this is part of the mysteries asking to be revived. Like, the land
Hmm.
speaks so loudly.
Yeah.
Um, and at Brauron, our spring is like
Hmm.
crazy. I mean, when I was a kid, you would sort of get the rains and then there would be water. But now, like the past 2 years, we've had like irises growing. Like, there's
Yep.
that much
Yeah.
water. And then this
Yeah.
year it flooded completely. Like, I'll put this on the YouTube video, like people can see it right now as we're talking, but there was literal flooding. Like, we couldn't access more than half of the site. It was
Oh, wow.
incredible. I've
Okay.
never seen
Wow.
that. Yeah, like the metal
Yeah.
grates, you could only
Yeah. Yeah.
walk
Yeah.
up to where the
It
bridge
just got flooded,
started.
huh?
It was completely flooded.
Interesting. Wow. That's really cool. Yeah.
Imagine you're journaling beside your private pool as you watch the sunrise over the Evian Gulf, surrounded by the stillness of rural, untouched Greece. Your 2027 journey to Greece is now open for booking. Choose the experience calling to you. At Intuition Activation, you will awaken your intuitive gifts at Delphi and within the sacred Kyrikian cave, the birthplace of the Pythia. During Sacred Waters, you'll visit the island of Evia to bathe in natural hot springs along cliff sides, journey to a Minoan cemetery on a liminal island, and board a private boat in search of Mediterranean monk seals among volcanic islands. This is the world's most ancient seal species, as mentioned in the Odyssey. And we also visit oracles and temples at ancient river sources. And this year, there is a brand new immersive, Dream Oracles, where you'll explore the magic of dreams, the healing that comes in prophecy, and the astral itself at forgotten oracle sites. In fact, you will be the first priestesses to perform ritual here in millennia. Each retreat is limited to only 5 people, giving you space for personal guidance, meaningful ritual, and genuine connection. That means only 20 people will journey to Greece with me in 2027. Reach out and let's get you started on your journey to Greece. Visit ElyseWelles.com/visit Greece.
Yeah. When we were there were irises. So
Oh,
that was, yeah, it was lovely.
and Delphi spring. So, like,
Oh,
Castalia is like,
Castalia. Oh, I love
she's,
her so much.
and she's like, her source is obviously, high up on the mountain.
Uh-huh.
So now when you climb all the way up, like towards the stadium at the top
Hmm.
of Delphi,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
actually another spring, but it's her water,
Right. It's
but
still
it's
her. Yeah.
starting up there now. And
Oh,
then there's
that's amazing.
another one. So you have to like kind of know what you're looking for. But once you tap in and you're listening for the water,
Hmm.
especially if you're a visitor and you're doing it trying to do it the ancient way and you start at the spring and walk up, you
Yep.
can actually, I think, connect more easily with this water. Like it will guide you
Yeah.
to it. And it's amazing how the tour bus types will just walk right past all this. They won't even notice it. They don't
Yeah.
even know about Castalia being there in the beginning of the site. It's wild. So even though it's a big site, you
Yeah.
can connect as an interested party.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I find it very easy to connect. I mean, I find it very easy to connect in Delphi. And if you go to the fountain, which they've put there, you can drink Castalia, which I would recommend doing before you go do any of the other stuff, like, bathe a bit and drink and then go in. And I think one of the lovely things, I know you are doing this and I am doing this, and I hope that more people do this, is like taking people where it's really approaching it as pilgrimage. And I just think that the mindset, if you take that mindset, it just changes the experience entirely. So I feel so honored to have been able to take a number of groups there. And I know you are doing the same. And, you have to be a little careful because you don't want to do anything that's going to be too disruptive, but you don't have to. You can do so much internally. And, you can drink Castalia.
Yeah. And
And
that's what I've been loving about
yeah.
finding these not ticketed sites.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think Joanna talked to you since we signed the contract, but her and I are co-writing a book with Moon Books. We've actually already finished the book. We wrote the book and then found a publisher.
That's, that can be the way to do it. That's basically what I did with mine. Although Heather helped me, the editor at Llewellyn,
Oh,
really
that's
helped
my
me
editor
figure
too.
out. Oh, she's fantastic. She helped me figure out how to turn things into exercises, which I did not really know how to do that. But yes, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So yeah, her and
So,
I went on a road trip last spring and I took her to these places I'd been excavating and we did spiritual archeology. We
yep,
dropped into trance and we got what we could and then we researched the minutia and we went to the Thebes
yep,
Archaeological Museum and because
yep.
for Vietia and Phokis and like these counties that are Greece,
Hmm.
Lakron,
Yeah,
that are not Greece, that are the oracle sites of Greece in the
yeah.
mainland, those are mostly going to be housed in the Thebes Archaeological Museum. So if anyone's like, looking for a non-Athens archaeological museum to visit, that is the one. It is unreal. You can
Hmm.
spend hours upon hours in there.
Yeah.
And we certainly did. But yeah, it was incredible, like what the land would show us and then what we could find evidence for that
Hmm.
supported it. And I
Hmm.
think that's how we're going to revive the mysteries.
Hmm.
Is It's so hard to say this as an academic background. I know you probably feel the same way. It is so unmooring. It's like heading out into the middle of the skate rink to be like, and sometimes there won't be a source, but the practice you're given will work. So
It'll
trust
work.
it.
That's right. And I think that's always one of those things where, I'm always saying it's like, I try to give the sources where I can. This part is from me. That doesn't make it wrong and I
Yeah.
always fall back on the story of Pheidippides, where I'm always like, look, Pheidippides, when he was running back from Sparta, bringing word to Athens, Pan appeared to him and said, "Why do I not have a temple?" And when he stood back up in Athens and said, Pan appeared and said, if you would build him a temple, he would help you. They didn't say, "Oh, Pheidippides, that's just a UPG." They said, "Oh, God, Pan, we will build you a temple." And they did. So everything starts as somebody's UPG, because otherwise, like, that's all real communication is that. And, you want to subject it to critical thinking, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, every true spiritual experience is a direct spiritual experience, and all cult comes from that. So yeah, absolutely. I think that it is like trying to be clear about it. And I try to be clear about when I'm like, now I am writing as a scholar. Now I am writing as, a
Yeah.
practitioner.
Here's my hats
Here's my
changing.
hats. That's right. And again, it kind of depends on like what is the purpose. And as I said, all those years ago, when my parents like, "Oh, we're a little scholar." It's like, to me, scholarship is you do it because it helps open things,
Yeah.
because I'm ultimately a practitioner.
Yes, yeah.
So
And again, why I came to the pagan path in general as a young witchling in like middle school was
yeah.
because it presented this reality that it's orthopraxic, not orthodoxic. Religion,
Hmm.
belief, dogma, these things shift and maybe don't serve. Maybe dogma never serves your path at all, but practice always will. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes larger religious models just don't really even almost encourage it, much less include it. So
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful part of our practices, like to get out of the books and get onto the land, to get to the
Hmm.
places, to get in trance, to do the spell jar, whatever it is, show up at
Yeah.
the altar.
Absolutely.
So I have one
Yeah.
last thing I'd like to talk
Yeah.
about that is about
Sure.
creating sacred space. The
Yeah.
Sacred Space Conference. Sacred Space, for those who don't know about it, I
Yes.
have talked about it a lot on the show, but it is really the number one conference
Oh,
that you
thank
can
you.
do in the United States, in my experience. I really adore it.
Thank you.
It is an incredible space, and it's the only one out there for intermediate and advanced practitioners.
Hmm.
So I would love if you could share about that as an event, and also why you knew it was an important sacred space to create.
So, Sacred Space as a conference has existed for quite some time. It's existed for like 30 years. And I have been on the board, I'm trying to even think how long, maybe 16, 17 years of that, something like that. And I've been president of the board for the majority of that period. And this was a decision. So, it was a conference like other conferences. That didn't have that focus. But we had a strategic conversation. Now, I want to say probably 15 years ago, in which we said, all right, we are looking at this as a piece of pagan infrastructure. We are trying to build pagan infrastructure. And what is the kind of mission for us? What should it really be? And at that point, because I also do have, again, I've got scholarly hats, I do also do research on contemporary paganism and contemporary pagans. I do large scale quantitative research. And I was like, you know what? The majority of people have been doing this for like 20 years. What are we doing for them? It's like there are an awful lot of opportunities for people who are new to the path to find things that can fulfill them. But there's not very much for all of these people who have been doing this for a long time to continue their growth. And, sometimes when you try to be all things to all people, what you end up doing is, and we find this like when I teach also, there's a reason why sometimes we do things, we say there's prerequisites and we're only taking people who've gone through certain things, because otherwise, in order to not lose the people who are newer, you don't really, you keep like having to go back and give foundations, and you never get into something that is allowing you to do more, that is more advanced. So we made a decision that we were going to focus on intermediate to advanced. And with the understanding, it's not that beginners aren't welcome. It's just, if you were a beginner incoming, welcome to throwing yourself in the deep end, because we're not going to dumb it down. So that's kind of the way in which we made that decision. And then the other thing that we decided is like, all right, as we are going through and we are trying to build consciously piece of infrastructure and figure this out, part of what we also want to do is we want to be a place in which whatever the the newer generations of teachers who are at that point of like, they've been doing a good job in their region, seeing if we can give them some ability to expand and to help build our kind of teaching base. So those are the two major things that we made a strategic decision about. So the conference has grown a lot. And we try to we've been in the Mid-Atlantic for as long as I've been involved in it, I think the entire time of the conference. I will say it is challenging because we've grown a lot in terms of we need a bigger and bigger space, which is more and more expensive. So we're trying to figure out some of that, but I am incredibly happy with just the quality of programming that we get, the quality of, the programs that are submitted to us for evaluation. We use kind of a peer review approach. That's another thing that we do. And we always have more amazing programming offered than we're able to include, but that's a good problem to have as an organizer. So, and then of course, the other piece of this is that we are trying to serve kind of the paganism writ large. So trying to make sure that we have a good balance of, different traditions, different viewpoints, kind of here's your theoretical pieces, here's your hands-on, here's your rituals, trying to make sure that we have a good balance of all of that. And so, yeah, I'm so happy that you enjoy it as much. And it has been a real honor to be working on it and working with a fantastic board. We have such a good board, and it's a working board. It's all volunteer. We just get in there and put together what has been a really good conference, I think. Well, yeah, and others fantastic. Do too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be growing.
Exactly. I think it's amazing. And we've had, for listeners to know too, like Ivo's been on the show several times, Ivo Dominguez Jr., and he's another board member, and also within Assembly.
Actually, he's not.
He's not anymore?
No, what he has not been since for the past 15 years. We sometimes do joint conferences with the
between
Assembly
the
of the Sacred Wheel, Between the Worlds. So that's where he's a board member. But he's always been a great supporter of the conference, regardless. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. And Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, which you also participate in, is also my favorite witchcraft organization on the East Coast. Again, it's not like I know a million, but it is my favorite one. And I've had the blessings to know lots of incoming students and also help them find Assembly, because I love having Ivo on every show that I host. So
thank you. And if I can just say something about that, because, I was solitary for forever. And then I came to the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel later. And I just want to share something in terms of what I find so unusual, because I would encourage other groups to consider this, is that when the founders and the elders created the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, they really tried to do something to build a structure where it would not be as dependent upon personality as pagan groups often are. And part of that means that you have a better chance, frankly, of surviving the founders, right? So they have an entire structure that is set up where, the group minds are tied to tools. And so, Theophania is it's tied in with astrology and all of this kind of stuff. But the group mind of Theophania is tied to a particular sword. And so what that means is that if I ever need to leave, if I need to step away, or if I die, that should not end Theophania. And that was why I was like, when I got this call from Athena and Apollo, and I'm like, that is what I want to do, because this call is it is coming to me. But if it ends with me, then I have not done my job. And so finding ways to build those kinds of formal structures And then the fact that there are these relationships between all of these different covens, and then there's relationships between the assembly and other groups. I just think that that is a model that is worth considering for other groups as well. And I give tremendous gratitude to the founders, including Evo, for having that level of foresight and for always being very, you know, the elders have always been very, very supportive of the people who are running covens and also giving us some autonomy. So there's an interesting shift there as well. So I just want to give gratitude
Yeah.
and share that piece, which may not be as apparent from outside the assembly, but that's part of what, in my mind, makes it particularly special.
Yeah.
Is how much attentiveness has gone into trying to create structures that can survive the first generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Which should be the goal of every organization that's being formed.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me say that.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for coming on the show today. Is there anything new coming up for you this fall? Or, I mean, we have Sacred Space in March, but
We have Sacred Space in March. I'm going to be teaching at Temple Fest, which
oh,
is
me
coming up in
too.
September. Oh, great. Well, then I will get to see you there. How exciting.
Yay!
Yeah. So I think those are the things that I currently have on the books. I need to reach back out to the Theosophical Society. I usually teach at least once, if not more, for them. And those are online courses. So that's the Theosophical Society in America. They often do very, very good programming that's accessible online to anyone from a variety of different spiritual topics. So there'll probably be something else. I just don't know what.
Yeah. Check GwendolynReece.net, everybody.
Which I have to do a better job of keeping that up to date. That is one of my goals. So
Well, thanks again for joining me. This has been great.
thank you so much, Elyse. And now I'm doubly excited because I get to see you soon. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you for Seeking Numina with me today. Join me at patreon.com/Elyse Welles to support this show and get access to a library of rituals, exclusive videos, meditations, and more. To learn more about my upcoming retreats, book a tarot reading, or learn with me in workshops, classes, or mentorship, visit seekingnumina.com.